Today's story follows Elijah, a 32-year-old high school English teacher who moved to a small coastal town in Maine after his engagement fell apart. When the confident new principal, Sophia, arrives at his school with ambitious plans to revitalize the struggling district, their professional relationship quickly becomes complicated. Elijah believes maintaining strict boundaries is essential for his career, while Sophia's forward nature and determination challenge his carefully constructed walls. What happens next will test everything he thought he knew about second chances, professional integrity, and finding connection when you're trying your hardest to avoid it. Sometimes the people we resist the most are exactly who we need in our lives. The faculty lounge fell silent as Principal Sophia Martinez strode through the door on the first day of the new school year. Elijah Bennett looked up from his lesson plans, immediately regretting the extra moment his eyes lingered on her confident smile. "I had a dream about you last night, Mr. Bennett," she announced, causing several teachers to turn their heads. Elijah nearly choked on his coffee as she continued, "You were finally agreeing to head the Literature Festival Committee instead of hiding in your classroom." The other teachers chuckled, but Elijah felt his face burning as Sophia maintained unwavering eye contact. He had deliberately avoided administrative responsibilities since arriving at Harborview High, preferring the safety of his classroom to the politics of school leadership. Now, this new principal he'd only met briefly during summer orientation was calling him out in front of everyone. "I appreciate the offer, Principal Martinez, but I should focus on my students this semester," Elijah replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Sophia tilted her head slightly, her expression suggesting she'd expected his refusal. "Your students would benefit from seeing their teacher engaged in the broader school community," she countered, placing a folder on the table between them. "The previous committee head left detailed notes, and your predecessor spoke highly of your organizational skills." Before he could formulate another excuse, the bell rang, and Elijah gratefully escaped to his classroom, the folder reluctantly tucked under his arm. He couldn't understand why this woman he barely knew seemed so determined to pull him out of his carefully constructed comfort zone. The coastal Maine town of Harborview had been Elijah's refuge for the past 2 years. After his fiancée ended their 5-year relationship just 3 months before their wedding, he'd needed a complete change of scenery. The small town with its foggy mornings and tight-knit community had offered the perfect place to rebuild his life without reminders of his past. His students appreciated his passionate teaching style, and he'd found peace in the predictable rhythm of school days and quiet evenings grading papers in his small cottage overlooking the harbor. Principal Martinez, with her direct gaze and challenging manner, threatened the careful balance he'd created. Later that week, Elijah stayed late to catch up on grading when a knock interrupted his concentration. Sophia stood in his doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Peace offering," she said, placing one on his desk. "I realize I came on strong the other day." Elijah accepted the coffee cautiously, surprised by her admission. "I've reviewed your teaching evaluations from the past 2 years, she continued, settling into a student desk across from him. "You're exactly what this school needs more of: passion, innovation, connection with students." Her compliments caught him off guard, and he found himself relaxing slightly as she explained her vision for revitalizing Harborview High's academic programs. "The Literature Festival could showcase what makes this school special," she finished, her enthusiasm genuine and surprisingly infectious. "I'm not the person you think I am," Elijah admitted, setting down his coffee. "Before coming here, I was engaged to the assistant principal at my previous school. When things ended badly, I promised myself I'd never mix my professional and personal lives again." He expected judgment or dismissal, but Sophia's expression remained thoughtful. "That explains your reluctance," she nodded. "But hiding your talents doesn't protect you, Elijah, it just diminishes what you have to offer." As she left, Elijah found himself staring at the festival folder, wondering if his self-imposed isolation was really serving him or just limiting him. Against his better judgment, Elijah began working on the Literature Festival, meeting with Sophia weekly to discuss progress. He discovered she had moved from Boston after a successful but draining career in educational consulting. I was tired of telling schools how to improve without seeing the results firsthand, she explained during one of their planning sessions. I wanted to actually implement the changes I believed in. Her dedication to the students impressed him, and he found himself looking forward to their meetings, even as he reminded himself to maintain professional distance. When their hands accidentally touched while reaching for the same document, the jolt of awareness that passed between them was impossible to ignore. The Literature Festival Planning Committee expanded to include 3 enthusiastic students and another teacher. During one meeting, senior committee member Zoe asked innocently, "Mr. Bennett, are you and Principal Martinez dating? You guys have this weird energy." Elijah nearly dropped his marker, while Sophia laughed easily. "Mr. Bennett believes teachers and administrators should never cross professional boundaries," she answered, her eyes meeting his with a challenge. "I think life's too short for arbitrary rules." The comment followed Elijah home that evening, making him question whether his boundaries were protecting him or preventing him from moving forward. As autumn painted Harborview in brilliant colors, Elijah found himself increasingly drawn to Sophia's company. Their planning sessions often extended into discussions about books, education philosophy, and eventually personal histories. He learned about her close-knit family in California, her passion for kayaking, and her failed marriage to her college sweetheart. "We wanted different things," she explained simply. "He couldn't understand why I'd want to leave a high-paying consulting job to work in a small-town school." Elijah shared stories of his own childhood in suburban Chicago, his love of poetry, and eventually, the painful end of his engagement. "She said I was too cautious, too afraid to take risks," he admitted. Sophia's knowing smile made him wonder if his ex-fiancée had been right. The night before the festival, disaster struck when a pipe burst in the school gymnasium, flooding the space where most events were planned. Elijah received Sophia's panicked call at midnight and rushed to the school to find her surveying the damage, hair pulled back messily, wearing sweatpants and determination. "Everything we've worked for is ruined," she said, voice tight with frustration. Instead of the defeat he might have felt months earlier, Elijah felt a surge of resolve. "No, we can fix this," he insisted, already mentally rearranging the schedule. They worked through the night, calling committee members, rearranging spaces, and printing new programs. As dawn broke over the harbor, they sat exhausted on the school steps, watching the sunrise paint the sky in pinks and oranges. "We did it," Sophia said softly, her shoulder pressed against his. "You did it," Elijah corrected. "I would have given up without you pushing me." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibility. "We shouldn't," Elijah whispered as she leaned closer. Sophia's smile was both tender and mischievous as she replied, "We already did, in my dreams last night." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Before Elijah could respond, the first festival volunteers arrived, and the moment slipped away, leaving him with questions he wasn't ready to answer. The literature festival exceeded everyone's expectations. Students performed dramatic readings, local authors led workshops, and the community turned out in impressive numbers. Elijah watched Sophia moving confidently through the crowds, stopping to chat with students and parents, her face animated with pride. He realized with startling clarity that he had fallen for her, her determination, her optimism, her ability to see possibilities where others saw obstacles. When she caught his eye across the room and smiled, something shifted inside him. The walls he'd built after his broken engagement didn't feel like protection anymore, they felt like prison bars. That evening, as volunteers cleaned up the last of the festival materials, Sophia found Elijah organizing books in the library. "We make a good team," she said simply. Elijah nodded, gathering his courage. "About what you said this morning," he began, but Sophia shook her head. "I crossed a line. I respect your boundaries, Elijah." Her professionalism in that moment, her willingness to step back despite her feelings, made his own reservations seem suddenly foolish. What if those boundaries were just fear disguised as principles, he asked quietly. The hope that flickered across her face gave him the courage to continue. I've been hiding in this town, in my classroom, afraid to risk being hurt again. Before Sophia could respond, the superintendent arrived to congratulate them on the festival's success, bringing with him news that threatened everything they'd built. The school board is considering merging Harborview with Westridge High due to budget constraints, he informed them gravely. This festival might have been Harborview's last hurrah. The revelation hit Elijah like a physical blow, not just for his job security, but for the students who thrived in the small, supportive environment. As the superintendent left, Sophia's professional composure crumbled. "I came here to build something lasting," she whispered, "not to oversee a school closure." In that moment of vulnerability, Elijah made a decision. "Then we fight," he said firmly, taking her hand. "We show them why this school matters." Over the next weeks, Elijah and Sophia worked tirelessly, gathering community support, preparing presentations on Harborview's unique programs, and organizing student testimonials. Their shared mission brought them closer, blurring the lines Elijah had once insisted on maintaining. When Sophia's car broke down during a snowstorm, he drove her home without hesitation. As they sat in her driveway watching snowflakes dance in the headlights, the tension between them became unbearable. "We shouldn't," he said again, but with less conviction than before. Sophia turned to him, snowflakes catching in her dark hair. "Stop telling me what we shouldn't do, and tell me what you want, Elijah." The school board meeting to decide Harborview's fate packed the town hall with students, parents, and community members. Elijah watched with pride as Sophia presented their case with passion and precision. When his turn came to speak, he found himself sharing not just statistics but his personal journey. 2 years ago, I came to Harborview broken and afraid, he admitted to the crowded room. This school, these students, this community helped me remember why teaching matters. His eyes found Sophia's in the crowd. And recently, I learned that sometimes the things we're most afraid of are exactly what we need. The board voted unanimously to keep Harborview open, with additional funding for the innovative program Sophia had implemented. The celebration afterward spilled onto the town green, despite the winter chill. As community members congratulated them, Elijah finally pulled Sophia away from the crowd. "You were right," he said simply. "About the festival, about the school, about us." Snow began falling gently around them as he continued, "I've been saying we shouldn't when everything inside me was screaming that we should." Sophia's smile was radiant as she stepped closer. "So what are you saying now?" she asked. Instead of answering with words, Elijah finally let his actions speak, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home and embarking on an adventure all at once. Spring came to Harborview, bringing with it new beginnings. Elijah moved out of his isolated cottage into a house closer to town, one with enough space for Sophia's book collection alongside his own. The literature festival became an annual tradition, growing each year as neighboring communities joined in. Most importantly, Elijah learned that the boundaries we create to protect ourselves sometimes become the very things that prevent us from healing. True safety isn't found in isolation but in finding someone worth taking risks for. Sometimes the dreams we resist the most become the reality we needed all along. We'd love to know, which country are you watching from? Drop a comment below. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, show your support by hitting the like button. Subscribe to Insane Life Lessons for more stories that touch the heart and change perspectives. Remember that the walls we build to protect ourselves can sometimes become our prisons, and the people who challenge those walls might be exactly who we need in our lives. From Portland, Maine, United